Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just start. Without certainty, without a perfect plan, just with the quiet knowing that something inside you is ready. Welcome to the HAUS Hub Podcast, your go-to space where design, cognitive sciences, well-being, and business come together. I'm your host, Monika Acosta, and today you're tuning into a Well-being Capsule, where we slow down, reconnect, and explore science-backed insights to nurture your inner self. This podcast is powered by HAUS, born from its mission to guide designers on how to create spaces for well-being grounded in cognitive sciences principles. Let's dive in. You know that moment when you feel the nudge to just start? It doesn't come with a sign or a burst of fireworks. There's no dramatic music. It's quieter than that. It's subtle and sometimes even disguised as restlessness. A quiet tug that keeps resurfacing while you're folding the laundry or driving to work or even sipping your coffee. And there it is again, that soft whisper. Maybe it's time. Not to start over, not to fix everything, not to be perfect. Just to start. I've been in this place more times than I can count. And honestly, that's exactly where I am right now, recording this very first capsule for the podcast. There's no performance here. It's just me in a quiet corner of clarity, beginning something I believe in, even though it still feels a little raw, a little uncertain, and a little new. And I won't pretend it's easy. Starting has never been easy for me. I love clarity and I want to understand everything before I even take the first step. But I've learned slowly and sometimes through resistance that nothing really shifts until we're willing to meet the moment. Not with certainty again, but with presence, just showing up. And after understanding that, I've learned to begin even when I didn't feel fully ready. And I rolled out my mat and moved my body, for example, after days of feeling disconnected with it. I've opened my journal and scribbled messy, directionless thoughts, not because I had something profound to say, but because I needed to meet myself there. I've said yes to things I couldn't fully explain just because they felt aligned. And maybe you're there too. Maybe you're holding the beginning of something quietly in your hands. Maybe you've been sensing a shift, a small pull towards a habit, a decision, a version of yourself that feels more true. Or maybe you're just tired of waiting for the perfect moment because at some point you realized it doesn't exist. That's what this well-being capsule is really about. Not reinvention, not a grand beginning, just that quiet, courageous step. The one you take not because everything is clear, but because everything in you knows it's time. This is the first capsule of the podcast, and it's the beginning of a series of reflections and conversations around well-being, around mindset, and how we design our inner and outer lives. It's not about big changes, it's about honest alignment, the slow, sustainable kind. And I couldn't think of a better place to begin than here, with the beauty of starting, the moment you choose to listen to yourself, to honor the nudge, to take the one step towards something that feels more like you. So whatever you're holding today, whether it's fear, resistance, hope, quiet longing, I hope this is your reminder. You do not need to have it all figured out. You just need to start. So in this first capsule, we are starting with something that's simple, but not always easy. The act of taking the first step. Why do we wait? What's holding us back when we already know what we need? Why does the first step, no matter how small, feel like the hardest one? Today, we're exploring that space between clarity and action, the resistance, the tenderness, the quiet truths that show up right before movement. Because starting isn't just about momentum, it's about alignment. And when we start from that place, things begin to shift in a really honest way. So now let's zoom in on that pause. The one right before the action. What the brain does when we hesitate and why that's not a flaw. Let's start in the mind. The moment before we start, whether it's pressing publish, stepping outside for a walk, or choosing a new thought pattern, our brain goes into prediction mode. Neuroscience tells us that the prefrontal cortex, our brain's executive decision maker, it just starts asking things like, is it safe? Is this familiar? Do I have enough energy to do this right now? And according to Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, our brain is constantly running a budgeting system, not of money, but of energy. If a task looks like it might cost more energy than we have, the brain resists. Even if the task is meaningful, even if it's aligned with our goals, we just resists. So actually, for our mind, it's not self-sabotage, it's conservation. And if we've had past experiences of overwhelm, failure, or shame around this specific type of starting, the amygdala, which is the emotional memory center in your brain, joins the party and heightens the sense of hesitation. This is why the famous phrase, just do it, sometimes doesn't work. The brain needs small wins. Predictable, gentle repetition, familiarity. That's why tiny habits work so well. One push, 1 minute of writing, one mindful breath. Every small start says to your brain, see, we did it, and nothing bad happened. That builds the wiring of trust, and over time, momentum shows up. Now, let's move a bit deeper beyond thought into sensation. Why your body sometimes says no, even when your mind says yes. This one is tender because so many of us carry guilt for not starting sooner. We think it means we're undisciplined or not hungry enough. But here's what the science says. Our subconscious mind decides a lot before we're even conscious of it. According to Stephen Porges and his polyvagal theory, we are biologically wired to assess safety, physically and emotionally. This means that if your body doesn't feel safe, because of exhaustion, overstimulation, self-doubt, or simply the weight of the world, it won't support forward movement. You might freeze, fawn, overthink, loop. That's not laziness. That's your system overprotecting you. In these moments, the work isn't to push through, but to regulate gently. Maybe that's a sip of tea, a deep exhale, a stretch, a moment of stillness before the motion. To you, consciously, it might look like nothing, but to your nervous system, it's a signal. You're okay. You're safe to move. And that's everything. Because when you start from safety, your start is sustainable. And from what's happening inside our brain, now let's move outwards to what's happening in our environments. Let's now see how to shape the world around us to help us begin, to help us start. Let's talk about the spaces we create internally and externally that either support our first steps or quietly sabotage them. In behavioral science, BJ Fogg introduced the idea of activation energy, how much effort it takes to get started. The greater the activation energy, the lower the odds we will follow through. So our job becomes this: lower the barrier, design for ease. Start where the resistance ends. If you want to journal, leave your notebook open on the desk. If you want to meditate, don't aim for 20 minutes. Sit 1. Let silence stretch you. If you want to start something new, like I did with this podcast, for example, maybe start by simply writing the name of it on a page. Sometimes the bravest design is the simplest. And this applies beyond habits. It applies to how we talk to ourselves when we hesitate, to how we structure our day, our digital space, our thoughts. If you keep missing the start, maybe it's not about motivation. Maybe it's about friction. And friction is a design problem. Whether it's your schedule, your environment, or your expectations, what can you shift so the first step feels doable instead of daunting? Because here's the truth no one told us. Starting is rarely about skill. It's about inner architecture, and you can redesign that. You can soften the edges and widen the doorway. You can make room for your own start over and over again. Let's pause for a second here and acknowledge something important. The science of starting isn't a straight line. Yes, we have research on behavior change, motivation, nervous system, regulation, and neuroplasticity. But the truth is, humans are complex, and no study can fully capture the lived experience of your wiring, your history, your emotional landscape. Some studies show tiny habits work wonders. Others suggest they fade unless deeply meaningful. Some people feel energized by newness. Others freeze in the face of it, not because they're broken, but because of context, trauma, capacity, or the season of life even. Starting is not a formula. It's personal, it's contextual, it's dynamic. It's influenced by the privilege, the environment, the nervous system, the sensitivity, the cultural narratives, mental health, and even sleep. So while neuroscience helps us understand the space, it doesn't always give us the map. That's why part of this process, especially in this space like this, is learning to become your own gentle researcher, to observe, to tweak, and to reflect. What fuels your start might be stillness, or structure, or support. There's no universal best way. There's only your way. So take what resonates and leave the rest, because the point of all this is not to perfect the art of starting. It's to make it more human. Here's your invitation for the week. Think of one area of your life, something you've been meaning to start. It could be as small as drinking more water, journaling at night, moving your body, or finally opening that folder with the name of the project. Then ask yourself, how can you make it doable? Start small, then go even smaller. Instead of writing the whole chapter, maybe just open the document. Instead of overhauling your mornings, just drink a glass of water when you wake up. Your nervous system doesn't need a grand gesture. It just needs a safe, familiar one. You can also try anchoring your start to something you already do. Stretch while your coffee brews. Take 5 breaths before opening your laptop. This isn't about willpower. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's about rhythm. If you're someone who responds to atmosphere, make it sensory. Maybe light a candle, listen to some music that calms you or energizes you. Create a moment that your body can recognize as yours. When you begin, notice that it's the showing up that matters, not how much you do. You don't have to finish the thing. You just have to start it. Let that be enough. Celebrate that you chose yourself. And finally, stay curious. Some starts will stick, some won't. Ask gently, what happened today? What got in the way? What felt good? It's not about getting it perfect. It's about noticing what makes the beginning feel more human and more yours. So don't overthink it. Don't wait for confidence, clarity, or the right timing. Just give yourself permission to take the smallest, softest version of the first step. Start there. Start now. Not because you're ready, but because you are worth the effort it takes to begin. Starting is powerful. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it is often sacred, quiet, and deeply personal. We explore more of this in the Well-being and Mindset Capsules of the HAUS Hub Podcast. And we also see how the spaces we create, the habits we keep, and the thoughts we nurture are shaping who we are becoming every single day. If this episode resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you shared it with someone who has been standing at the edge of just starting. Someone who might need that little reminder that even the smallest steps count. And if you haven't yet, follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube so you do not miss what's next. We drop new episodes every Tuesday. And hey, thank you for being here, for listening, for starting. Stay well, stay curious, and keep designing your life with intention. See you next time.